Hey, what is going on, WBE fans? It is General Tar Heel bringing you the final pick'ems of this season of WBE, and I'm looking really forward to the championship game, and I hope you are as well, CJ.
Oh, I am so excited, man. These two coaches that advanced to finals here have been some of the best performers all season, some of the best entertainers all season. It all comes to a point here. We're going to have the showdown of the year in this finals game.
For sure, and for the two that made it, we have the reigning champion and the one with the best intros in the entire league, Wolfie and his Milwaukee P-Wares, and then going up against Lord MV and the San Diego Gym Chargers, for those of you who do not know. But as for the results, MV did rise over Gator. Gator brought some unusual sets, not really likely things you'd be seeing in the semifinals, with no more than three moves on a Pokemon. But it came down to it. MV earned the spot, and he came into the finals. And then on Wolfie's side, he was able to take out the underdog, the Cinderella story, in vivid color in the South Texas Sable Eyes. But make sure to check out those battles if you haven't yet, so you get more of an insight on this. But as for overall analysts, most people went 4-4 on their picks, and basically 1-1 if you want to look at it like that. We had It's Sock and Uzi Gunner actually dropping 0-8, which is pretty unfortunate, while you guys at home for the fans and JB Westside actually went 8-0 on their pick'ems last week. That leaves now JB Westside in the lead with the overall score of 156.58, but I believe, CJ, this means the fans now have the highest winning percentage for the pick'ems.
That's right. The fans have a 75.3% winning percentage, whereas JB Westside has a 72.9% winning percentage. I haven't gone and run through the scenarios. I imagine probably the only way for JB to if JB picks right and the fans pick wrong, there's a chance that JB can get ahead. But again, I haven't done that scenario yet. He's probably the only person who has a chance now. Unfortunately, with you and Uzi, with the records that you guys have, you guys were kind of the champions through the whole season. I think now the fans are just out of reach of you guys. So really nice performance by the fans with their third eye open all season long, being able to predict all of these games. So it's really going to come down to the wire here, though, in terms of who's going to come out ahead in this finals match. Is it going to be Wolfie or is it going to be MV? That'll obviously determine who's the season-long Pick'ems champion.
For sure, and it's going to be an amazing match, and we're going to make sure to go in depth on both sides to try to give you guys the best we can, because of course it's only one game at this point we're talking about to see who will get that belt, and we're going to go a little bit back and forth between the teams just to give the proper discussion, just so we get each other's insight on what we're expecting in the matchup. So CJ, do you want to kick us off with this amazing game?
Yeah, definitely. So I think it's pretty clear how both of these coaches have been playing all season long. Wolfie kind of plays pretty safe, and he relies a lot on the pivoting potential of Tornadus to deal with opposing teams. Sometimes he combos that with Regenerator Duosion. Sometimes he'll use Wheezing as a nice pivot, Mandibuzz as a pivot. MV, he doesn't have necessarily a straightforward of a play style. It kind of depends on the coach, but we've seen him be very masterful with bulkier play styles, he had in his game versus Leo in the playoffs, as well as the game versus Leo in the regular season. But then brought a very offensive team in the matchup versus Gator in the last round here. So it's kind of interesting to see how these two play styles are going to mesh, based on these two teams. There's a lot of big threats on MV's side, I want to say. Sceptile is definitely very scary. I'm thinking that it's going to, it's probably going to be checked by the Tornadus T on the Beware's side, but I'm a little weary of a SD Adamant Sceptile with Outrage, just because there is no Dragon Resist on the Beware's side besides Excadrill, and an offensive Excadrill takes 80% minimum from a +2 Adamant Outrage. So that's pretty crazy. I don't know if you're thinking if Envy's going to go with a more sort of standard Sceptile, it's especially offensive leaning, maybe mixed or not, Ben. But I think that's probably the biggest thing that I'm worried about for Wolfie, seeing how what Envy's threats are. Victini also looks really scary. There's just not a ton of threats or a ton of checks to it outside of maybe Gigalith. Just because Gigalith is so bulky on the defensive side and especially defensive side, resisting that fire type stab, whether he wants to go for V-Create or Blue Flare. But the problem is like Victini is so easy to use as a pivot into Dugtrio that Gigalith could totally get trapped. So my question to you, Ben, do you think Wolfie kind of switches up his play style as being more of like a pivot, kind of play it safe coach here and goes for full hyper offense? And if he does that, how do you think he ends up dealing with some of the bulky options that MV has, like with his Azumarill and his Rotom and things like that?
Well, I feel like the most ideal check to all this is going to be his Torn. I feel like that's going to be important Pokemon in this game, period. I don't really see Wolfie going too hard in the route of hyper offense, though, just because he is very comfortable playing in a well-balanced team style, where he has his bulk and then he has his offense, or just bulky offense in general. And that's just basically what this team runs when you look at it, apart from mons like Gengar and Drill, I guess a little bit. Drill can be bulky, but mainly Gengar, I guess, is just like the only one that kind of stands out. But apart from that, he's brought bulky mons throughout the entire season, of course, with the likes of Mandibuzz. You have the Gigalith always being bulky to set up Sand. Bulky attacker and Mega Blastoise. So it's going to be a little bit difficult for him to go fully offense because he still wants proper checks to a few things, I feel like, even though it's going to be very difficult in the long run, especially when you mentioned with Mega Sceptile being so dangerous because you do not have a fairy for a dragon immunity, and then you have a sand team, and then that's just a very strong offensive grass type also at the same time. So Sceptile is just a massive threat, and your poison's also wheezing, which isn't that great in the SPDF statistics of things, so you have to be aware of that as well. So plenty of threats like amongst that, and it's going to be difficult for him to deal with everything. Maybe like a taunt Torn's going to help out a lot. If you're able to knock that Rotom and immediately threaten that out if you're offensive, if he switches hard Rotom into Torn, that'd be really helpful because that thing's going to be less likely of a threat in the long run or of a nuisance in general because we know how much he likes T-Wave. So I definitely feel like Wolfie's going to have to play different here because overall with how he's been building throughout the entire season, I don't feel like it's the best matchup for him to play with a balanced team.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, and kind of along those lines, we're looking kind of, let's take a look at Wolfie's threats. We talked about the Sceptile and Victini on MV's side. I think the two sort of most reliable offensive threats for Wolfie this season have been Excadrill and Blastoise. But Excadrill is kind of an odd case because I think it could get neutralized in this game by something like Azumarill, which can very easily run Aqua Jet. The Rotom Ghost does hardwall the Excadrill. You even have the option of running like Scarf Dugtrio, which can outspeed Excadrill and Sand if it's adamant natured. And so, like, does Excadrill have to come somewhat differently? Like, kind of like you're saying, like with a more bulky style of Excadrill, like does he bring Subtoxic Protect again, like he brought versus Patters on his Excadrill, or do you think there's another strategy there?
It's really difficult to say with stuff like that, especially when there's the massive threat of Victini and the Dugtrio, like you mentioned, and just having something to easily be able to outspeed Mega Sceptile as well is going to be pretty huge. So I feel like using Excadrill more as a revenge killer than anything else is going to benefit him more in the long run. Subtoxic also isn't going to work too well, especially if you have like Heal Bell on the Togekiss in the back to deal with things like that. Drapion's not going to be able to come in on the Toxics or the Registeel because of the just general threat of Earthquake. So you do get benefit from that, but just being able to get rid of those threats and the revenge killers and those speedy mons are going to be huge, I feel like. Especially if you have to deal with like a potential Choice Scarf Togekiss just in the back with Air Slash and for example, Rotom's been T-waving everything. So you definitely want something to be able to counter most of these things, even though if Rotom does hardwall Excadrill, Excadrill can't carry the Shadow Claw if it really wants to. But I feel like the revenge killing more aspect of the Sand Rush is going to benefit Excadrill a little bit more in this match.
Right. So you brought up something pretty interesting there, and it kind of goes back to one of MV's sort of favorite strategies from this season, and that is T-Wave spam. And he's not necessarily going for paralysis hacks when he's going for so much T-Wave. We're not trying to imply that. But I think that, there is a sneaky chance for T-Wave spam to be pretty good here. Because if you can get like something like Heracross in with everything being paralyzed, Heracross can really go in. The only Pokemon that doesn't really care so much for or that doesn't mind the T-Wave is like Excadrill and Golem, both of which are going to get bopped by Heracross. So do you think there's any chance that MV, if he's focusing on his offensive core of like with Sceptile and Victini, building around those, does he support it with like Rotom, Togekiss, Registeel with T-Wave?
I definitely see that being a likely outcome here because having, once again, that Guts Heracross to be able to outspeed things could be huge. And in general, like stopping Revenge Killers for Mega Sceptile and the Doug Trio, like limiting potential Scarfers, that's also very big. And one thing that we didn't really mention is how if you're able to get a Paralysis on that Virizion and it's not Scarf, that Azumarill is a massive threat because you're one thing that outsped Azu that could take hits now has to worry about being slower and then just dying to a play rough, and then you have like no checks to that after. So that's gonna be pretty big there in that department as well. So T-Wave spam is looking very solid, especially when Wolfie doesn't have any cleric options, unless Virizion gets aromatherapy, which I don't believe it does. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Okay, well I'm assuming
the website
pretty
saying
positive
it doesn't. Yeah, the website says that it doesn't actually.
All right, cool. Then yeah, I definitely see T-Wave spam being very helpful in the long run versus the Milwaukee B-Wares, especially when the immunities are just drill, which you can Will-O-Wisp if you want to. And then a Alolan Golem, which is a Alolan Golem. It's bad. Wolfie tried it before, and I don't feel like he's going to bring it again. So in the likes of that, I definitely feel like that's going to benefit him very heavily in this match. And that can also really help out with things like Ditto. Ditto, of course, copies the Mon, and then he's able to work alongside with that. So there's definitely plenty of benefits to Envy as usual, bringing that yellow color, and that's going to help him out.
So we've been talking a lot about, kind of like what are the best options for Envy. He's got a couple of good options. Wolfie, he has a great team, but maybe some of his normal options are sort of neutralized. But, we're not trying to make it sound like there's no options here for Wolfie, period. What do you think about this strategy, Ben? So Drapion is looking pretty important on the other side there for Envy as a way to deal with Gengar and Duosion. What if Gengar was kind of like a lure, so to speak, for Drapion? Like, maybe you run Fightinium Z and you hit it up with a very powerful all-out pummeling, get that thing pretty weakened. If that Drapion goes down, like, what is sort of the counterplay to a Duosion that's either Trick Room or probably more threatening is a Double Dance set with, like, Acid Armor and Calm Mind? Do you think that has potential if the Drapion can get removed?
I feel like that has amazing potential, and Gengar's definitely able to pull something off like that, whether it's with the Fight Z like you mentioned, or running some kind of more cheesier set like in the counter or Destiny Bond aspect of things. You're usually able to run like a Colbur counter set on Gengar in order to deal with the Drapion. Drapion will have more HP, of course, but it's still going to be getting off plenty of damage. You may just be able to revenge it with the very next hit after. Destiny Bond's a little bit more situational because you have to ensure that they're actually going to go for attacking move. But Drapion is just such an annoying Mon, and he has actually limited checks to Duosion after. I don't really know how you're going to be able to deal with that in the end if it just gets a bunch of those Calm Minds up. You might just have to try to flinch it down with Togekiss, get a hard hit off with Heracross if it's not able to get the Acid Armor up. It's going to be very situational for Ditto to come in and just try to copy and win that way, especially when you're able to recover up with Duosion, so I don't feel like that's possible. So that would be an amazing win con for Wolfie, I feel like, if he's definitely able to get rid of the only dark type that the Chimchargers have and make Duosion his win con, whether it is the Double Dance like you mentioned, or if it's just an offensive Trick Room. I feel like that still has decent potential as well. I'd rather look for the full just potential sweep with the Mono Psychic setup because I feel like that's the most ideal for Duosion. But Wolfie's definitely going to have to think a little bit more creative in his aspects of building here. Like I mentioned, he can't really go through the balanced lines of things, but I feel like Envy's gonna have to be aware. If he sees that Gengar, he's gonna have to know it's gonna have something in order to get rid of that Drapion, and that's gonna be a little bit more obvious if he sees the Duosion with the Gengar together. But at the very least, that's a very solid strategy for Wolfie, and I definitely feel like it could pay off. One other creative set I definitely feel like Wolfie could bring, apart from like the kind of the lackluster stats, would be an offensive Weezing. I definitely think it actually has a decent matchup here, because of course the immunities / resistances to poison are the Doug Trio, Drapion, and Registeel. You're able to get off, and technically the Rotom as well. You're able to get off a nice Fire Blast or Flamethrower versus the Registeel. Doug Trio is just very weak, so it doesn't matter in the first place if it's a resist. You can carry Dark Pulse on the Weezing in order to hit Rotom, as well as the Victini that might want to try to revenge. And in the end, once again, you're trying to weaken that Drapion so you can have the likes of Gengar or Duosion to capitalize that in the long run. So do you actually feel like an offensive Weezing would be an interesting threat for Wolfie to bring because of it?
Yeah, I kind of like that option. For definitely for the reasons that you mentioned. I also kind of like it just because it gives a little bit of insurance for an offensive Azumarill. So if you have like a max speed Jolly Azumarill, it's not going to be clicking Aqua Jet versus a Weezing, like unless Envy is just like, yeah, like I said, he's got his third eye open. So if you've got that Weezing with a little bit of speed investment to be able to outspeed that Azumarill, you can throw off a really powerful Sludge Bomb versus that Azumarill, take it out. If it has gone for like a belly drum or something like that, it's a pretty sneaky way to catch that thing off guard. So I definitely think it has value, and it doesn't have to necessarily be super bulky to have value as a pivot in this game. It can still pretty easily probably pivot in on Heracross if it's not like a Flame Orb set. Registeel it can switch in on, Drapion it can still switch in on. And because it has its a Levitate ability, it's not going to be vulnerable to Dugtrio coming in and revenge killing it. So I think that's pretty nice. That's another point just to bring up about the Gengar that I think is cool. I don't believe that Gengar gets trapped by Arena Trap since it's a ghost type. I know that's true like with Gothitelle, with Shadow Tag. I think that's the same case with Arena Trap.
Mm-hmm. Ghost cannot be trapped. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So I think that both of those mons are relatively good just because they don't have to run an item to protect themselves from Dugtrio. But yeah, sorry, to your original point, Weezing could be a sneaky option here. You can run those, like maybe the 3 attacking moves and still run something like Will-O-Wisp in the last slot to make things annoying for like Drapion or Registeel. So I can see some potential there.
It could even have the likes of running an Assault Vest with just 4 attacks. That way that you can easily be a potential switch into Sceptile or just not have it revenge you if you think, oh, it's an offensive Weezing, I should be able to easily knock it out. Then you can have that as an option as well. Or if you switch out Weezing the first time and then you keep it in versus Victini the next time after it's already taken like a few things of rocks, then you might be able to live a Psychic hit because of your Assault Vest and you're able to knock it out with a Dark Pulse, which could be pretty huge. So there's definitely a few benefits there.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess what we have to come down to now, Ben, is who are we going to be picking in this game? This is one of the hardest games of the season to choose. Naturally, it's the way it should be because it is finals. But tell the fans who you're going to be picking this week.
Well, it took me a little bit to go over it. When I initially knew the final 2, I thought, okay, in my head, I'm going for Wolfie. He's the reigning champ. He's comfortable here. I love what he's been doing all season. He's been absolutely killing it. And then when we did our notes and we looked through the matchup, it was just looking pretty difficult, and I definitely believe Wolfie can bring something that's going to catch Envy off guard, but just with how easy the matchup is for Envy and how standard he can be with his sets and still bring one piece of heat to catch Wolfie off guard while he's prepping for the standard mons that Envy normally brings, then that's going to be a little bit scary. So I definitely actually had to go for the San Diego Chimchargers and Lord Envy for this finals match. Majority of the people actually going in favor of the Milwaukee Brewers because of Wolfie's wanting to keep that championship belt, or at least get it because this is the first belt, but keep the championship title. The fans at home, you guys are also voting in favor of Wolfie. But CJ, you're on the same boat as me with Lord Envy here.
I am, yes. As hard as it was to vote against the defending 2-time WBE champ, I agree that I just think that the matchup is a little bit in Envy's favor. As you mentioned, there's still some things that I think Wolfie can do. But his sort of reliable mons like Blastoise, Excadrill, they're very easily dealt with by Azumarill. And I think that the offensive potential, particularly of Sceptile, but also Victini, I think is going to be a little overwhelming, just based on the way that Wolfie likes to play his team. So we'll have to see. I'm sure that Wolfie's going to make me regret it because everyone's doubted him, through his first 2 seasons of WBE because, he's not a singles player. He's a VGC player. And so I'm sure that, it would be my luck that would happen again, that he would rise to the occasion and get another championship. But I'm also hopeful that MV can get a championship here. He's come so close so many times. The one that really sticks out in my mind is the GBA championship that he lost out because he got crit on his Pelipper. I can't remember if that was season 7. So he's tasted it, but he's never really held the trophy up. And so this could be his best chance to do it to date.
Definitely has a chance. It's definitely going to be an amazing battle for sure. I'm looking forward to both sides 1,000,000%. It's something that we've been waiting for to see who can hold up that belt in the end and be the champion for the WBE for this season. So that's going to be it for the analysis, though, guys. Thank you once again for watching, and thank you for staying for the entire season for Pick'ems. Even if this was your first episode, thank you for watching. We appreciate it. Nonetheless, all of your support this season was really great, and we appreciate it. Thank you if you stayed along, whether that was in the comment section or just voting on the Twitter polls online. We definitely appreciate all the stuff because this was for y'all. We tried our best to give you guys the best content. Even the feedback earlier on in the season really helped provide us and let us know what you guys are really looking forward to every week. And we just really appreciate what you have done for us in this season of WBE.
For sure. And, we ask this every week, but if you guys liked the video and you've enjoyed the whole WBE season, would really appreciate it if you guys dropped a sub on the WBE channel here. There's going to be some Sword and Shield content coming up probably very soon after the release. So if you want to get all of the notifications about that, one of the best ways to do it is to stay subscribed to the YouTube channel. Another great way to stay up to date is to follow the Twitter account for WBE. You're, of course, going to be able to find all of that info down in the description below. While you're in the description, make sure you check out all the fantastic coaches. These guys are and gals have been working their butt off to make this the best season possible, and would really appreciate your support in that way. And if you want to go even just an extra step further in your support, if you want to check out the Ownage store, get a t-shirt, that'd be awesome. If you want to check out the Pixelmon servers and play some Minecraft, that would be really awesome as well. And as Ben said, just once again, thank you guys so much. We hope that you enjoyed this whole season as much as we have. It's been a true pleasure, and let's just hope that this one, this one really go out on top with the best game of the season.
All right, guys, we'll see you in the championship, and that's gonna be it. Deuces.
Peace.